Hello, good afternoon. My name is Christelle. I'll be your webinar facilitator today. As you know, the Australian freight forwarding and logistics industry is experiencing unprecedented challenges and disruptions caused by a combination of weather, industrial action, port emissions, empty container park capacity, and congestion. In fact, as you know as well, we have never seen anything like this before. It's all happening at the same time. We have covered all of this issues during our last two webinars in the past month. So if you'd like to find out a bit more information about that, don't hesitate to just click onto our LinkedIn or YouTube page. So the term supply chain with a focus on the word chain explains how every link in the chain affects the party or process preceding or those coming after it. A great example of this is how the situation here in Australia has affected operations at origin for all cargo coming into the country. So this is what we'll be talking about today. Before I formally introduce our speakers, I just needed to run through a few housekeeping items with you. Firstly, please input all your questions on the chat box below. We will go through them during the Q&A. Secondly, take a moment to please complete the feedback survey after the webinar. Thirdly, a recording of this webinar will be distributed via broadcast to you by the end of this week. And if you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to get in contact with us. So now on to our guest speakers. It's my absolute pleasure to introduce to you Andrea Gandolfo from our VGL Italy office. Andrea has been in the European freight forwarding and logistics industry for over 25 years. He'll be providing insight from the perspective of the Origin office. I know it's quite early there, Andrea. I hope you've had your coffee. Thanks for helping us out.
Yeah, I did. Double espresso.
Great, good. You'll need it. I'm also very pleased to welcome a special guest from MSC, Con Commercies. He is the National Commercial Manager based here in Melbourne. Con is here to provide some insight from the perspective of shipping lines. So thank you so much for joining us today, Con.
Thanks, Caitlin. Pleasure.
Awesome. So let's get started. Andrea, I'm happy to pass on to you now so you can provide us with the update for Europe.
Okay, thank you, Christelle. And thank you everyone for being here today. Look, we want to just run very quickly the situation that's happening, evolving here in Europe. First thing they want to touch base is the impact of Australian situation on carrier services ex-Europe. We had already a very difficult situation a few months back, but the industrial action and port disruption in Australia have worsened a situation that was already critical in terms of lack of space and equipment shortage. This has impacted the number of services available from Europe to Asia and decreased space allocation for the Australian trade by Southeast Asia. Another key factor that not many of us are aware is that the shipping line has started to apply the best paying rate policy. This means that the rate from Europe to Singapore or Bangkok contributes more than the rate to Sydney or Melbourne. The shipping carrier, they will take cargo into Singapore and Bangkok and not the one to Australia. This is causing then a significant pressure back on the availability of the direct services. Obviously, we had at the beginning of the peak season a blank sailing this month on the direct service Australia, causing a reduction of space of about 7,000 TEU, which is 87 tons of cargo that every week is moved on the direct service. The port, like Sydney and Melbourne, have always had a surplus in equipment because, as you know, Australia is an importing country. The ongoing industrial action has prevented to evacuate the empty containers to return them to the network. Indeed, many of them are still in the container park in Australia. Con, you want to add something briefly on this?
Yeah, thanks, Andrea. I think the key to this is the ongoing industrial action in Australia. Although the terminals are back at work for the time being, which is a very encouraging sign, and I'm sure all importers and exports are very pleased with that, there is still a backlog of containers empties. For example, Andrea's got their 7,000 TUs, is absolutely correct, but that figure has grown now. And I can tell you that MSC have got close to 9,000 to 10,000 TUs alone sitting in the port of Sydney. Also, so everyone's aware that the Terminal Patrick's is going back to the Arbitration Commission later this month with the waterside workers. Hopefully they'll be able to cure everything and clean their problems, and they can all get back to work and work at a steady pace to be able to move the containers out, and then we can move our containers, as can all carriers. It's just, this is not just MSC. So as Andrea correctly said, that there is pressure on space to Australia, and that's what's causing it. And like any business, it is revenue driven at the moment. No doubt everyone knows that the revenue to Australia has been very low to an extreme. So this is where the problem is, because rates are going up everywhere and Australia and New Zealand are not far behind. So it's still an issue, but hopefully we can get through this together.
Thanks, Con. We touch base now on the space availability. All main shipping lines are still doing regular blank selling to ensure that vessels are used for profitable services. The first market is dictated by supply and demand, which is linked to the up and down of the movements of export volume out of China, and this is also linked to the key holidays like the Golden Week, the Chinese New Year, and so on. The mass impact of the COVID-19 to the global supply chain has dictated and shaped the global supply and demand. Shipping line like never before are now closely analyzing global supply and demand trends to determine basically how to best utilize their fleet. Considering this, we expect to see more blank selling becoming a regular occurrence on the Far East trade in the coming years. Just a very brief snapshot on the situation in Europe. Maersk has suspended loadings to Oceania completely. WOCL just resumed accepting some booking to Australia. They're not accepting cargo to Sydney, nothing to New Zealand. Hapag-Lloyd, the first availability, it's now the 14th of November. Hapag-Lloyd is currently backlog in Damietta and also in Singapore. We learned that the Kalamati trader, which is an extra loader specifically tasked to clean up the backlog, it's due to leave Singapore today. And because there is this extreme pressure on volume, it's anticipated that, yes, the Kalamati trader has resolved the problem now, but it can happen again in a week or 2 weeks' time. COSCO is accepting cargo, but they have 2 weeks of rollovers in Piraeus, Greece, and Singapore. CMA, CGM, and MSC have as a first available vessel the APL Danube, which is departing on the 11th of November. So as you can see, the pressure it's quite strong everywhere. Con, you want to add on this last bit regarding MSC?
Just for a minute there. I mean, again, what Andrea said is very accurate and very good. Just to give you an idea for everyone that's listening, the MSC CMA relationship or CGM relationship is a good relationship. It's a tight relationship. It's a consortia. We have 14 vessels on this service. 9 are MSCs and 5 are CMAs. So can you imagine, everyone that's listening, that the only direct carrier with 14 vessels is MSC and CMA? How do we split the service? How do we split the allocation? We split it 65% goes to MSC because we have the greater number of vessels, and 35 goes to CMA/ANL. But with the pressure, with all the other carriers, as Andrea said, from Asia and everyone else having blank sailings, bookings are just growing significantly. So we're encourage you to keep booking via Visa and MSC, not a problem. We will do the best we can to carry everyone's cargo. I don't want to downplay our competitors, but they have their issues. And we're making sure that we're going to have the direct service, but also offer a transshipment service via Singapore at every opportunity. So we want to move cargo out of Europe as quickly as we can on your behalf and to bring it home to Australia or New Zealand. So we're doing the best we can. And really, we want the other carriers, let's be honest. We want the other carriers to recommence their service. We don't want blank sailings. We don't want delays. We want to have consistency in Australia and New Zealand, offering everyone a good import and export service.
Thanks, Con. Another situation is happening now in Europe is the congestion of the European ports. European ports are very well developed, but Europe is experiencing now a significant equipment shortage in the Scandinavian and Baltic region. Northwest coast continent and the West Med regions. Services that are full, are traveling full capacity, are unable to reposition empty containers to ports where they're needed. And many ports are also experiencing slower than normal operation due to the weather disruption and the impact of COVID-19 in Europe. Let's not forget, we're just going through a second wave of COVID, and cases continue to climb, and there are also increasing cases among staff working at port and the terminals, which means lower turnaround on their operation. Another very important topic for us is the equipment scarcity. The main reason for the equipment shortage in Europe, it's because of the imbalance in equipment utilization. Very simple. Currently, all shipping line services are full, meaning that there are more containers being utilized that are available for pickup. The driving factor here remains to be the Asia export volume, which is affecting all trades. Sometimes, excuse me, sometimes we are even forced to pick up empty containers in other terminals or other ports rather than departing one. And this is obviously with extra cost for our truckers and our customers, but it's the only way to get the freight moving. Some shipping lines are trying to find a solution to this issue by prompting a quick turnaround time of containers and leasing more containers, but it's not going to be an easy and quick fix. Con, you want to add shortly on this?
Yeah, very similar to you, Andrea. It is a problem, definitely. We want to move the export or the empty containers out as soon as possible. We'd like them to, for our exporters to really do more exporting. So there is problems, obviously, with COVID, as Andrea correctly said. The export market needs to pick up. It is slowly starting to pick up. And as we know, we are an importing country. So every 10 boxes we import, we only export 2 or 3. So you can see the imbalance there is quite significant. So the quicker we can drive the export market, the quicker we can get the containers in and out, the better it will be for everybody. And there is the scarcity in particular for reefers. So that's a problem.
Okay, thanks, Con. Obviously, all these is having impact on shipment to Australia. We've told you how overbooked the carriers in Europe are, and it is expected to remain the same at least until the end of November. We're hoping on a small decrease at the beginning of December. Although let's not forget there are the Christmas holidays, so factory will try to get everything out before their Christmas holidays. Although I don't know what kind of holidays we're gonna have this year. We anticipate that 2021 market will be quite like the one we've seen in 2020. As previously mentioned, the main driving factor is still the export volume out of Asia. In terms of services, we've seen that during the COVID-19 crisis, the direct service product has been a reliable service. If we look at what happened in March and April, when a lot of the Far East carrier went from weekly, fortnightly, sometimes even 3 weeks, every 3 weeks service, the direct service kept their weekly schedule. And now with the heavy congestion situation in Australia, they still regularly call on Sydney despite the operational issue. So to be fair, keeping this in mind, the direct service has proven to offer a better control to the supply chain and explains why the services have become more attractive to importers in Australia and why they are under extreme space pressure. Con, you want to add something on this?
Yes, thank you, Andrea. I think I was excited when Andrea put this slide up because everyone was worried about 2020. I can only speak for Europe to Australia and New Zealand, so I apologise on all the other countries. I'm not in control of those. But as far as Europe to Australia and New Zealand is concerned, we're very optimistic that things are going to go extremely well. As I was mentioning to Andrea just previously, the number one commodity out of Europe at the moment is foodstuffs. It's grown by 60 to 65% in the first 9 months of this year compared to last year. Yes, we need food to eat despite the economy we're in. However, as the big department stores import or supermarkets import this food, it flows down to other clients or other importers to supply them as well. So that's very encouraging too. So we've seen that. And as Andrea says, the services are under extreme pressure, but we'd rather be in extreme pressure how to load your cargo rather than extreme pressure not having cargo and then having to change the service. So we can assure you as MSC Australia and MSC Geneva, our principals, the Australian Express service is here. It's going to stay. It's going to be buoyant. It's going to be exciting. And we would like you to continue supporting us, and we'll continue to offer you that as the best as we can. So I think 2021, once we get out of this pandemic of a mess, is going to be quite exciting as far as Europe's concerned.
Thanks, Con. Obviously, we don't want to leave you just with worries, but we want to look at next steps and options. I can't stress this enough. We need to work not just on the ready date in terms of. I'll tell you what is happening here in Italy and in Spain and in Turkey and in Germany. Sometimes we get calls from suppliers that are ready in 2 days, in 3 days, or the week after. This is not going to work at this stage. Yeah, we still do miracles time to time, but it's crucial to us that you share the information on expected production date. That's very important. So talk to your supplier. We will talk to your supplier, ensure that they understand that they have to share those relevant information, not just when the cargo is ready to be picked up, but most important, when it's expected to be ready. We can't emphasize enough the importance of working closely with your VGL team and planning for your shipments in the next coming month. The more buffer, as we said several times, the more buffer time we allocate to neutralize the impact of ongoing delays and disruption in the global supply chain, the better outcome we can achieve for your business. We have come up also with a service which is air and sea product. It's basically halfway between an air freight product and a sea freight product. It will cut the transit time by 50% and will cut the air freight cost by 50%. So please ask your local representative about the service and have it back of your mind in case you need it. But if we go back to the our beloved FCL business, this is the time to start planning the first few weeks of November in terms of bookings. So let's plan together and ensure that we are ahead of the curve. And I thank you for your time.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Andrea. Thanks, Con. Now let's delve into our Q&A session. We'll go through the questions that we received through the registration phase first, and then whilst we do, if you have any questions that you'd like us to respond to live, just please put them all in the Q&A box below. So our first question is from Nathaniel. He is asking, are there any changes to shipping times from Europe, and are they permanent or temporary?
All right, I'll answer this one. I've touched base on this earlier about the ongoing interruption to services. Today, the delays out of Europe can be estimated around 2 to 4 weeks. This is specifically for the Far East services. Although, even though there is no change on the Nemo direct service, there are challenges with the booking with MSC. We've seen it right now as they are overbooked. They were forced to discharge cargo in Gioia Tauro, which is their Mediterranean hub, and ship via Singapore. However, this is not the normality. Is a part of the contingency plan to move container out of Europe. Otherwise, they would have been stuck in Europe.
Thanks, Andrea. Did you want to add anything to that, Con?
Yeah, again, Andrea answered it extremely well. And also, as I mentioned earlier on, there will be delays. There's no doubt about that. Weather, circumstances. We're not in a perfect world, unfortunately. So please factor in certain elements into your shipments. So, whatever you see as a transit time, you should always add a little bit because of the circumstances that prevail both in Europe and in Australia.
Thanks, Con. This question is actually probably best for you. It's from Katie. She's wondering, how long can we expect the current shipping line congestion surcharges to apply for?
What a great question, Katie. Terrific. I'm so glad you've left it to the end. At this stage, I wish I could give you a definitive answer. And it's not that I'm avoiding it. It's just that we don't know as yet. And it just means that the terminals need to get back into gear. And you can just imagine, Katie, just try and imagine that we're trying to get a berth. If we have a berth at, say, Sydney terminal on a Monday, if we don't catch that berth at 9 o'clock, if that's the time we've got, because there's a congestion in the terminal, then we have to wait out in the port to get the next berth. And that could be hours or a day later. So everything hinges on how the terminals work. If the congestion can be eased at the terminals in Melbourne, Sydney and Brisbane in particular, then believe me, Katie, we don't want to charge this, believe it or not, we will take it off. But at this stage, the cost of the congestion is really driving the bay and the ports a lot of money, and that's where it's hurting us. So the quicker they can get their act in the gear, we encourage everyone to push the terminals to work harder and get their waterside workers on board to work their shifts properly.
Do you want to add anything to that, Andrea?
Look, very briefly, also because I know we've touched base as a VGL on the previous webinar. There are currently in excess of 50,000 TEUs stuck in the New South Wales container logistics chain. So obviously the port congestion surcharge will remain. Reports, mid-October reports, they still talk about up to 21 days behind on their schedule in the terminal. So yeah, we don't expect this to be removed anytime soon.
Can I just add one other thing to that? Can I just very quickly, just 30 seconds, please. Just won't be long, just to help Katie and everyone understand what we do as a carrier. If we see that a port is congested, and sometimes you might have seen this, that our first port of call coming down from Europe is Sydney. Then we go Melbourne, then we go Adelaide, then we go Fremantle, and we take Sydney, Brisbane cargo via Sydney. But at times we call Melbourne first because Sydney's congested. You see, we can't get the berth. Or we might call Sydney, Melbourne, and go back to Sydney. We might double dip it. So because of the congestion in the terminal, it makes the carrier to plan the berthing a little bit difficult. So if you ever see that your cargo is going to go to Sydney and you're saying, well, why on earth are we calling Melbourne first? It's because of the congestion and to bring the schedule back into line. That's the issues.
Yeah, thank you, Con. Our next question is from Cameron. He's asking, what's the availability of containers and lead time to procure them at the moment in Europe?
All right, I'll answer this one. The situation in Europe remains very tight. As I said, the average lead time for standard equipment is about 2 weeks. For special equipment and reefers, there's a possibility to ramp up to 3 to 4 weeks time exactly. In terms of how many ships are departing from Europe to the for the Australian service, I can't tell you the exact number. For sure, having seen those ongoing blank sailings and a reduction of departure by 30% at least to the Far East, I would say we are down by 30% in terms of capacity.
Our next question is from Alexander. He's asking, how long will this situation likely to last? Don't we all want to know?
I'll let how long is a piece of string, Alexander? We would like it to finish as quickly as possible, believe us. We want to do this because, you know, bunkers costing a fortune. Just everything. To run a shipping company is not the most profitable thing at the moment. So we're looking to get this thing resolved as quickly as possible, try and get back to some normality so then we can have no more blank sailings and no more issues like that. And just, again, a little bit further to Andrea's point on the previous question, just from the Far East to Asia, the 2M service, which Maersk and MSC are partners in that, believe me, everybody, the vessels are about 25 to 27,000 TEU capacity. The reason why the blank sailing is going in there is because there's no cargo. The volume's not quite there yet. So try filling a 25,000 TEU on a weekly basis. It really is causing a problem. So you can see the dilemma this COVID has created and the congestion in various ports and how the revenue plays an impact. So it is causing an enormous problem. So once things get back to some normality, and who knows when, at least Australia is ahead of everyone else. But at the end of the day, it's going to take a while. It's going to take a while for sure.
Thanks, Con. Our next question is from Joe. They're asking, what is the preferential port in Germany? Is it Hamburg, or I can never say this word very well, Bremerhaven? Is it Bremerhaven?
Oh, perfect. I know you pronounce it very well. I'll answer one. Hamburg, I would say, is the preferred port for Oceania for a couple of reasons. First of all, it has a better availability of empty containers due to the various deep sea connection. There are a lot more services going and coming out of Hamburg port than Bremerhaven. Even some customers locally, they prefer the custom system in Hamburg than the one in Bremerhaven. And thirdly, Bremerhaven doesn't have as many as connection with the rail traffic to Interland and Eastern Europe like Hamburg does. So I would definitely pick Hamburg.
I agree, definitely.
Yeah. Another question is from Juan, and he's asking, can you please provide an idea of routes and transit times from Poland? So maybe just provide a generic overview, and then if you'd like something a bit more detailed, we're happy to have that offline, and we'll send you an email.
Well, I'll answer this one. Like from pretty much everywhere in Europe, we got the two services, the direct and the transshipment. The direct service will feed the cargo from Poland to either Hamburg or Antwerp, depending on the feeder rotation, and then on the direct service into Australia. The other services are the Far East carriers, which we do a double transshipment again from Poland to the main ports in Northwest continent, and then again transshipped in Singapore, Port Kelang, and then down to Australia.
Thanks, Andrea. I've got a question here for you, Con. It's from Michael. He's asking, are ships sitting idle, or is the issue the imbalance? That's what he's put in his question.
Imbalance. I would think if Michael's talking an imbalance of equipment, that's a part of it, but it's also the tonnage as well. So just think back 5, 6, 7 years ago when the markets were so buoyant and shipping companies were building ships like they were going out of fashion. Yeah, that was the flavour of the month. Who can build the biggest ships? Who can build the biggest vessels? Where can we put the biggest vessels? And now the cost of fuel and bunker is an astronomical cost. The wharfs are charging an astronomical cost, and the volume is just not there, meaning that the revenue is not there, Michael. So there is an imbalance, but it's also depending on the trade that it operates. So, for example, where on earth would you take a 25,000 TEU vessel? You couldn't come to Australia. It'd be hanging off the rafters. You could never get it here. The biggest one we can fit in Australia would be an 8.5, 9,000. That's it, because of the dredging. So everyone's got these big vessels, but we can't fill them. And MSC is not the only one doing that. Everyone's done that. So now we've got all these vessels. So if anyone wants to buy a vessel, let me know and see if I can sell you one. But that's basically the issue. So that's causing a worldwide glut. There's a worldwide glut of vessels.
Thanks, Con. I have a question here from Melissa. She's asking for a bit of an update on what the situation is like at Rotterdam at the moment.
Rotterdam, I mean, you want to answer this one, Con?
Yeah, as far as MSC is concerned, Rotterdam, Melissa, was it?
Yes, Melissa.
Yes. Melissa, Rotterdam, as far as MSC is concerned, is there's no issue because, as you probably know, Rotterdam and Antwerp are only an hour drive away from each other. So the majority of our cargo does go, we take it to Antwerp. We do call Rotterdam on the occasion, but we take it to Antwerp because the entire Antwerp port, which is 9 kilometres long and has two bays, if you like, it's owned by MSC. So we can operate the terminals easier in Antwerp with our vessels, plus we have other carriers go in there. So there's no issue at all to be able to feed the cargo from Rotterdam to Antwerp. None. We haven't come across any issues.
Did you want would you like to add anything to that, Andrea, or no?
Yeah, well, look, the only thing is that the scarcity of equipment is still an issue in every port.
That's all it is.
So even Rotterdam is suffering that topic.
This question is for you, Andrea. David is asking, how long is congestion delays in La Spezia at the moment?
Okay, in La Spezia, we are going 2 weeks. We're booking 3 weeks. So the congestion is there. Actually, the next, the MSC Tianjin, it will not call Gioia Tauro. So we'll pick up in La Spezia whatever they can to accommodate every Tuesday we booked on that vessel. And for that, they will not call Gioia Tauro, where the rest of the Mediterranean cargo is normally fed through. but the MSCT engine will not clean up the backlog. So we need to wait for the APL Danube to, I think, see a little bit more resolution in La Spezia, which is the 4th of November.
Thanks, Andrea. Katie is asking, I think we did cover this a little bit in the presentation today. She's asking if the congestion, if you guys think that the congestion will ease by November. I don't think so.
No. No, sorry, Katie. I'd love to give you a lovely Christmas present and say yes, but just looking at the situation at the moment, I don't think so.
Can I
mean, mind you,
on this?
Today's only the 21st. So,
as everyone, I think, is aware, at the beginning, the shipping lines went on trying to charge this from arrival date. And we also participate to several discussions to make this happen from the departing date. So let's keep in mind that they still have to recover 1 month almost of trouble and extra money that they spend there. So even though maybe the situation will get better in terms of operational time locally, I think we will see this charge applied for a few more weeks after things have gone right.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
I got a question from AJ. He's asking, with the lockdown in Europe, will we see further delays due to internal transport restrictions? I'm not sure if he means like domestically here in Australia or...
No, I think he means in Europe. Look, we've gone through already, actually, we've gone through a massive shutdown in March, April, and we've seen a minor delay. I mean, the problem that we had back then was the closure of the customs between the borders in Europe. This is not happening again this time. So I don't think we're gonna see problems for that reason, for that specific reasons.
We've received a question from Nathaniel, but he's asking more about the price for the air-sea hybrid service, so that's good. We might need to get in contact with you outside of the webinar, Nathaniel, so we'll email you. Was there any other questions at all? Because I think we've answered everything that was lodged on the Q&A. If anyone has any other questions, please type them on now. Otherwise, we probably will wrap up for today. No more questions? Okay, that's okay. I guess we can wrap up. So we are in the process of organising another webinar with a focus on an update on the current situation here in Australia. So we will be sending out an update about that shortly. So keep an eye out for it. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Con. Really appreciate you being here today.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, and please.
Pleasure. Thank you, everybody.
And please don't hesitate to get in contact with your VGL representative if you have any questions at all. Have a great afternoon. Thank you, everyone.